Today we're going to talk about factoring trinomials. Now I have my own very special method called blankety blank, which you can use if you would like, and if you do not like it, you can use whatever method you learned in algebra. Whatever way works for you is fine with me, as long as you know how to factor. So factoring trinomials, this is the general form, ax squared plus bx plus c. So when you're starting this, you're going to set up some blanks. That's why we call it blankety blank. You always take blank times blank is equal to whatever a times c is. Then blank plus blank is equal to b. Now, you'll have two numbers here, and you'll try to figure out which two numbers multiply to whatever that product is, but add to whatever b is. So that's the part that you've got to do some thinking on. After that, you take whatever's in your blank. So let's pretend that we found out that some p and some q multiply to whatever a times c is, and that p and q also add to b. Now the p, this needs to be the same, and this needs to be the same. So whatever two numbers you put for the multiplication needs to be the same two numbers for the addition. Then you take your letter, what's in your blank, and you put it over whatever a is, and then your variable. And you want to see, does it reduce? And you do the same thing for the other blank. Q over A in the variable. And check and see, does that reduce? I know this is sounding kind of silly. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute with an example. Then the way you write your terms is you go denominator and then numerator. So we would have AX plus P, then AX plus Q. So they're always denominator plus whatever your numerator is. Okay, so the reason why I've got this example directly beside here is because we're going to follow the steps for blankety blank using this particular example. So example 1, we're going to factor. We have 5x squared minus 13x plus 6. So we're going to first pick out our A, B, and C. Now 5 is A, negative 13 is B, and 6 is C. So we're going to multiply, set up blank times blank, is equal to A times C. Now that's 5 times 6, which is 30. Okay? Then blank plus blank is going to be equal to B, which is negative 13. Now here's where people run into some difficulty. They can't figure out what goes in the blanks. Now you can go over to the side and do all the factors of 30, play with the signs, because whatever the two numbers are, we've got to add to a negative, and then we're multiplying to a positive. So that tells you that both numbers have to be negative, because we need to multiply to a positive and add to a negative. So you can play in your calculator and do factors of 30, or you can write a table off to the side, it doesn't matter. So the two numbers that work in this case are negative 3 and negative 10. And whatever I put in the first two blanks, I have to put in the next two blanks. Notice how this is the same and this is the same. So we have our blanks filled out. We know that negative 3 times negative 10 is positive 30, and negative 3 plus negative 10 is negative 13. Alright, then we take what's in our blank, so we have negative 3, and put it over A, and remember A is 5, and our variable. And we see if this can reduce. Now, we're just looking at the fraction negative 3/5. That fraction does not reduce, so I'm going to go ahead and circle it. That's one of my terms. Then I take my other blank, which is negative 10, I put it over A, and my variable. This actually reduces because a negative 10 over 5 reduces to negative 2 over 1, or just negative 2 over x. And that's our other term. So the way we write our terms is we go denominator, numerator. So for the first one, we have 5x minus 3. That's our first term. And for the next term, we have x minus 2, denominator, numerator. And that is our factored trinomial. So my method's a little kooky, a little crazy, but it works. So let's do a couple more examples using this method. Now remember, if you have a method that you like better, knock yourself out and do it your way. Okay, B, we have 3x squared plus x minus 2. So A is 3, B is 1, and C is negative 2. So let's set up our blanks. Blank times blank is equal to A times C. So we have 3 times a negative 2, which is negative 6. And then blank plus blank is equal to B, which is 1. So then we got to fill out our blanks. Which two numbers multiply to negative 6 but add to positive 1? So we've got a positive number and a negative number because we're multiplying to a negative. So we need negative 2 and 3. They work for both cases. And remember, whatever you put in the first blank, it has to match up to the first blank of the other one. And whatever you put in the second blank has to match up to the other second blank. So let's take our blanks and we put it over A in our variable. So we have negative 2. We put it over A is 3, and our variable. This cannot reduce. And then we take our other blank, which is 3, and we put it over A, which is 3, and our variable. And this goes to 1 over x, because 3 over 3 is 1. So there's our other term. So my two terms are, we're going to do denominator, numerator, 3x minus 2, and then x plus 1. So there's our factored trinomial. Let's look at C, excuse me. So this time our A is 1, and that's okay. B is 2, and C is negative 3. Blank times blank is equal to A times C, so we have 1 times the negative 3, which is negative 3. Then blank plus blank is equal to B, which is 2. So then we have to ask ourselves, what goes in these two blanks? We got to multiply to a negative 3, but add to a positive 2. We have negative 1 and positive 3. So then we take what's in our blank. So we have negative 1 over A, and A is 1, and our variable. That's the same thing as negative 1 over x, because we can drop that 1 in front of the x. That's one of our terms. Then we take the other blank, put it over A in our variable, and that's the same thing as 3 over x, because we can drop that 1 in front of the x. So my two terms are x minus 1 and x plus 3. And there's our factored trinomial. So let's look at two more of these. Okay, so let's look at D. So we have blank times blank is equal to A times C, and A in this case is 6, and C in this case is 6, and we get 36. And then blank plus blank is equal to B, which is 13. So let's see what two numbers multiply to 36 but add to positive 13. And that is 4 and 9. So we're going to take what's in our blank. So we have 4 over A, which is 6, and our variable, which is D. And that can reduce to 2 over 3D. And that's one of our terms. Then we have 9 over 6D. And that can be reduced to 3 over 2D. So my first term, 3D plus 2. And my second term, 2D plus 3. And there's our factored trinomial. And I actually lied. We have another example after E. Sorry. Okay. Now, we haven't really been checking for a GCF on these previous examples. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you need to check for a GCF. We've just kind of been going with the flow of the blankety blank. Because in E, we actually have a GCF that we need to pull out first. All three of these numbers are divisible by 2. They're all even. So I'm going to pull the 2 out first. And I'm going to write what we're left with. We're left with y squared minus 2y minus 8. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do blankety blank with this part of the trinomial. And the 2 we're just going to write and use that last. So let's do blankety blank with what's in the box. So blank times blank is equal to a times c. So we have 1 times a negative 8. Then we have blank plus blank is equal to b. And b in this case is negative 2. So let's fill out our blanks. We have 2 and negative 4. And they work to multiply to negative 8 and to add to negative 2. So we're going to take what's in our blank. So we have 2 over a. Now remember we're using our a and the 1 in the box in our variable. So that's the same thing as 2 over y. So that's one of our terms. Then we take the other blank and you put it over a in our variable. So a is 1. Our variable is y. So we have negative 4 over y. And that's our other term. So I'm going to write these two terms. We have y plus 2 and then y minus 4. But we cannot forget, what did we pull out at the beginning? This 2. We're going to write the 2 in front. So there is this trinomial factored. So we've got one more example. So let's take a look at this example. We have x squared minus 6x plus 9. So there's no GCF, so we can move forward. So let's go ahead and let's set up our blanks. Blank times blank is equal to a times c. A is 1. C is 9, which is 9. Then blank plus blank is equal to b, which is negative 6. So what's going to go in our blanks here is negative 3 and negative 3. So let's carry on like we've been doing. You take what's in your blank and you put it over a, and a is 1 in our variable. That's the same thing as negative 3 over x. So that's one of our terms. Then you take the other blank, it just so happens our blanks are the same, over a, which is 1 in our variable. And that's the same thing as negative 3 over x. And that's our other term. Now, if you notice, these two things are the same, and that's okay. We're going to write the first term, denominator, numerator, and the second term, denominator, numerator. But we're going to write it differently at the end. Since this is doubled, we have x minus 3 squared.